Erica, also known as Erica Drott, she envisions herself as a successful farmer with a farm full of shimmering golden rice. It was a dream that brought her happiness, even if it was just for a moment. As she returns to reality, she realizes that her dream was nothing more than a figment of her imagination. In her current life, Erica reveals that she has memories of her past life and a shocking prediction for her future. In her previous life, she was deeply passionate about farming, thanks to her farmer parents who instilled that love in her from a young age. Erica's dream was to become a farmer herself, and she even left school to pursue that dream. With dedication and hard work, she transformed their family farm into a renowned rice brand, earning the admiration and envy of many. During that time, Erica's life as a farmer was perfect and reached its peak. However, as she reflects on it now, it almost feels like it never happened at all. Tragically, she was involved in an accident that claimed her life. When she woke up, she found herself in an ordinary life as a young lady, but the memories of her past experiences were still vivid in her mind. It was a bewildering and maddening realization. Suddenly, a thought strikes Erica, causing panic to surge through her. The world she now inhabits is the same world she read about in a novel before her death. She has been reincarnated as one of the characters in that very novel. Erica reveals that the plot of the novel is quite simple. A divine-powered heroine named Pandora appears, and men become infatuated with her out of the blue. It's a straightforward romance novel centered around a reverse harem. In the original story, Erica Drott, the villainess who causes trouble for Pandora, plays a significant role. In her past life, Erica was born into a privileged and esteemed family, earning her the nickname, Drott's Treasure. However, she developed a negative personality and lacked proper work skills. In the midst of the story, our female protagonist finds herself paralyzed with fear, questioning why she has been reincarnated once again as a dying villainess. As she opens her eyes, she is met with the worried gazes of her parents. Concerned, her mother asks what has happened, her voice filled with anxiety. She also reveals that in the original novel, Erica's parents had always tried to protect her until the very end, raising her with love. Looking at her parents, she acknowledges the trouble she has caused them and expresses her gratitude for their care and upbringing. She promises to do better in the future. Her changed demeanor only heightens her mother's concern, leading her to inquire about any pain or discomfort Erica may be feeling. Returning to the present, Erica reveals that all of this had occurred just a few days ago, leaving her wondering how she can continue to avoid her impending death. After much contemplation, she comes to the conclusion that this moment took place before Erica had committed any wicked acts. She resolves to change her future through good deeds from now on. Erica discloses that Pandora has not yet encountered the male leads, and as long as she doesn't interfere with the main characters of the original novel, she won't face execution. The most crucial aspect of achieving this is to avoid any involvement with the male leads. She privately ponders their popularity, finding them all truly insane and questioning the reasons behind their fame. As she gazes out of the window at the garden, Erica realizes that there is another dream she longs to fulfill: to succeed in farming, just as she did in her previous life, and become a legendary farmer. She plans to live happily until old age and peacefully pass away in this new life. Sweat beads form on her face, her expression twisted with worry as she realizes she has to face him first, knowing their relationship is already strained. The man she dreads meeting is the secondary main character in the novel. Her carriage comes to a halt in front of the enchanting tower she had set out to reach. Stepping out, she gazes at the Imperial Research Institute, the magical tower. She knows it's not a place easily accessible to everyone, but she has the privilege to enter as a member of the Dewey of Drott. It dawns on her that she arrived at the magical tower without informing him, and she wonders if he will actually agree to meet her. Placing her tea on the table, her name being called causes her muscles to tense, and she forces a smile despite the evident tension on her face, realizing he is present. Without any pleasantries, R.O. straightforwardly questions her reason for being there. She carefully observes him, noting the absence of any emotions in his expression and the coldness in his eyes, confirming that he truly despises her. Despite being her older and only brother, she quickly reminds herself that he is also the secondary male lead in the novel. The Duke and Duchess of Drott, unable to conceive for a long time after their marriage, adopted R to fill the void. However, as soon as R was adopted, Erica was born, and R's position in the Duke's family diminished. Erica intentionally tormented him and constantly did things to provoke him. After all, he wasn't truly a Drott, But Erica, despite being adored by her parents, managed to create a rift between the Duke, the Duchess, and R, who eventually moved to the magical tower. As a result, R harbored a deep hatred towards Erica. She recalls a line from the original novel where his character watched Erica's execution and genuinely smiled for the first time. He had eliminated Erica, who had taken away his only wish. R wonders what led her to this place. Considering the original work, it's understandable for him to address her in such a manner. Nervously, she steals a glance at him and attempts to formulate a response, but fear grips her as she faces him in person. All she desires is for him to allow her a moment to prepare for direct eye contact. Suddenly, she places her hands on her hips, furrowing her brow as she questions his intentions. She came to visit his brother, emphasizing their familial connection. She reassures herself not to be afraid as he is still a young boy. She is also aware that she requires his support if she wishes to survive. He smirks at her mention of family, his eyes ablaze with anger as he sarcastically remarks on the unexpected nature of her visit. She involuntarily flinches, taken aback by the harshness of his words. Contemplating her next move, she clenches her fist as the tension in the room escalates beyond her expectations. Realizing that if things persist in this manner, he might end her life before her trial. Resolved not to surrender to her fate, she acknowledges that there is something she must communicate to her supposed brother. Falling to her knees, she admits her faults and expresses regret for her actions. She wonders if this gesture will appease him. Apologizing sincerely, she pleads for another chance, recognizing the significance of her life at this moment. While acknowledging that he may not forgive everything, she promises to make amends and hopes for a better future. He remains silent but eventually commands her to rise, reminding her that he is not truly her sibling. She hesitates, but with a flick of his wrist and the power of his magic, he effortlessly suspends her in midair, leaving her astonished by the unexpected turn of events. She can't help but question whether it is indeed magic. He assures her that her words and opinions hold weight, regardless of the circumstances. Whatever she says, whatever her opinion, he doesn't want to hear it. With a furious expression he announces nothing will change no matter how hard she tries. After that, she made several visits to R, but they never crossed paths. As she lies on her bed, she understands that it's only natural for him to despise her after years of incessant pestering. However, she has no choice but to continue apologizing until R's anger subsides. According to the original story, R truly desires Erica's demise, especially after Erica began relentlessly harassing the novel's protagonist, Pandora. She reassures herself that as long as she behaves properly from now on, there shouldn't be any major issues. But aside from apologizing to R.O., she wonders what else she should do. Suddenly, the idea of farming fills her mind, prompting her to abruptly rise from her bed, realizing that farming is the only path ahead of her. Compared to her previous life, where she started from scratch, it feels like she's starting anew once again. In this world, she truly believes she is Lady D, born into privilege. Determination surges within her as she realizes that this will mark the beginning of her perfect farming life. Peering out through the window, she notices vast stretches of flat land, a perfect environment for cultivation. She mutters to herself about the wasted beauty that has been left unappreciated. Observing the fertile land, she can't help but reminisce about her past life, where she toiled diligently in rice cultivation, knowing that it was a highly profitable trade. Although she may have had a good harvest in the past, it's disheartening to think that all her efforts were in vain. Nevertheless, she is resolute in starting anew here, firmly believing that as long as she doesn't give up, nature will surely reward her patience. With renewed hope, she descends the stairs, ready to embark on her journey of rice cultivation once again, determined to succeed. As she walks along, her gaze falls upon the sword resting in the living room, and a feeling of familiarity washes over her. In the field, Felix, the gardener of the draught house, questions her presence. She appears confused, unsure of how to respond. Suddenly, a smile spreads across her face and she says, "Can't you see? I'm tilling the field." Confusion fills Felix's expression as he wonders why she would be tilling the field. She struggles to come up with a convincing answer, feeling embarrassed by his sudden interrogation. But then, she finds a lie to tell him. She explains that it's a popular hobby these days. She also mentions that she will make a list for him to bring her some seeds and seedlings. Concerned, Felix asks if it's too strenuous for her, considering her recent illness. He worries that it might harm her body. Noticing his hesitation, She reassures him that she's perfectly fine and in good health. However, he remains unconvinced and reminds her that her illness has become a topic of rumors throughout the duchy. She brushes it off, claiming that her parents are just overly concerned. She confidently states that there isn't a weak member in the Drott family. Reluctantly, Felix admits that she is an exception. He comments that she resembles a rare dual flower and firmly believes that fieldwork is too much for a delicate young lady like her. She thinks he's kind and considers asking him to join her in farming, as his physique seems ideal for rice cultivation. Shyly, she asks if he's saying this because he's worried about her. She decides to work for a little while and then leave. Sensing the change in her demeanor, Felix expresses his inner turmoil, noting that she has changed a bit recently. Unsure of how to respond, she simply thanks him and expresses her gratitude for his efforts in keeping the garden beautiful. He blushes due to her compliment and acknowledges that it is indeed something he should do. However, she is well aware that taking care of the plants is not an easy task. Instructing him to lower his head, he promptly obeys. She removes her hat and places it on his head, instructing him to use it during his work from now on. This causes him to panic, questioning how he can accept such a gesture. She reassures him that it is perfectly fine for him to take it and instead suggests that he can assist her with farming whenever he is able to. She is pleased with the success of finding a farming partner. She raises the sword that was previously in the living room, capturing his curious gaze. As he contemplates, a sense of shock overwhelms him, questioning whether this could possibly be what he suspects. With uncertainty, he asks her about the object she is holding. In a dry tone, she replies, "It's a family heirloom." He corrects her, stating that it is the holy sword Garcian. Garcian is a sacred sword that appears in the novel. This holy sword possesses its own will, allowing it to choose its master. According to the story, when the holy sword is wielded by a noble-hearted individual, it is said to bestow its power upon the owner. Erica also recalls encountering this information in the original work. She finds it impossible to believe, as she had brought it along thinking it was simply a decorative item in the closet. She questions who would leave such a valuable family heirloom unprotected. Felix explains that the Duke had labeled it as a family heirloom, so he had stored it in the closet. Erica realizes that the Drott family is known for their simplistic thinking, making it unlikely for them to consider hiding away the heirloom. Felix suggests that she return it, but she insists on keeping it due to its exceptional effectiveness in tilling the field. As she gazes at the sword she had mistaken for an axe, she ponders the impossibility of it being the holy sword she had unknowingly used. Felix warns her about the Duke, and she agrees, acknowledging his concerns. She promises him that she will only use it for today and return it afterward. Also informing him that it has a better sharpening ability compared to the axe, he chooses to ignore it for the time being and proceeds to work as if he is oblivious to everything. Once she is alone, she decides that she will secretly use the holy sword on occasion. Little did she know at that moment, this holy sword would bring about a very peculiar turn of events in her life. Felix brings the requested seedlings and seeds and presents them to her. She expresses her gratitude, but he doesn't seem bothered. In fact, he is pleased to see her interest in them. However, upon opening the bag, she is disappointed to discover that there are no rice seedlings inside. She questions Felix, asking why he didn't bring the rice seedlings. The gardener nervously inquires about the rice seedlings. Erica questions if he doesn't know what rice is, but Felix replies he's not an agricultural expert. He's asked other people but no one knows what those rice seedlings are. Erica is shocked, but quickly composed herself, declaring she'll make do with what she has. She ponders if rice hasn't been discovered yet. She then approaches Felix, and asks him to keep it a secret from her parents, because they'll worry. They fire all the teachers when she said she wanted to take a break, so she can't tell them she wants to work in agriculture for a while. Felix exclaims of course. Her parents have gone to the imperial family, and this is her opportunity. While having her meal, she calls out to Kiel, mentioning that she has a question. She reminds him that he is a chef and asks if he knows what rice is. Kiel is the chef of the Duchy of Drott. He inquires if she said rice. She clarifies that she meant rice, questioning if he is unfamiliar with it. As she ponders this, she realizes that she has never had rice here before. Kiel takes a moment to think and then suddenly recalls. Her excitement grows as she questions if that's truly the case. He confirms that he saw it in a book. She wonders what kind of book it is. He explains that although the ancients used to cultivate rice, it eventually became extinct. However, he finds it remarkable that she is already interested in history. She finds it hard to believe, as it appears to be rice cultivation from the ancient Stone Age. She calls out to him, asking if he means to say that rice is now an extinct crop. He informs her that since he has never seen it before, it might just be a legend. However, he adds that they should be grateful that wheat has not gone extinct either. She contemplates what to do now about her dream of becoming a successful rice farmer. Ever since she remembered her past life, she knows that this has been her only hope. The chef is asked if he has any additional information about rice. While reading the book, he mentions that there is another passage in it. According to the text, demonic monsters also have a fondness for rice, so all the rice was taken to Mount Kaji and discarded. However, he believes it's just a myth and wonders why the monsters would even take rice. This makes her ponder if there is still rice available. She considers that the ideal conditions for rice cultivation, such as temperature, humidity, and soil, might be the reason. She realizes that there must be a solution and remains determined to achieve success through rice cultivation. After some time, she becomes very excited as she announces that the nursery is finally complete. She knows that once the seeds sprout and the flowers bloom, they will bear fruit. Before she can fully admire it, a maid informs her that the Duke and Duchess have arrived. Surprised, she exclaims that she should have gone to greet them earlier. She rushes towards them, calling out their names. She reflects on her past life and how her relationship with her parents used to be a bit awkward, but now she has adapted perfectly. They ask if anything happened while they were away. She replies that nothing significant occurred, except for her visit to the magic tower to see her brother Ro. She decides not to mention anything about farming at the moment. The Duchess interrupts, asking if she didn't previously mention that Ro dislikes her. Erica questions her past actions, wondering why she did that. She admits that there is nothing wrong with her brother, she is the one at fault. The Duchess asks her to explain, and she decides to reveal everything about Ro to her parents. She understands the impact of their absence on Ro and the love he should have received all this time. She had a strong desire to bring him back to the duchy. She has informed the Duke and the Duchess about everything, explaining what happened and confessing that she fabricated all those accusations out of jealousy. The truth is, Ro wanted to get along with her from the beginning. Her parents were initially embarrassed, but they eventually understood the situation. The Duchess assured her that she believes she has thought about it enough based on what she just said. However, she also acknowledges that it might be their fault for not taking proper care of Ro, suggesting that they should have a family meal together at least. As she contemplates the stifling atmosphere while having her food, she hopes that someone will break the silence. The Duke asks Ro if the food suits his taste. Erica gazes at him, realizing that he indeed possesses acting skills as a member of Drott. She knows that her parents mentioned they would invite Ro to have dinner with them that evening, and so he joined them for the first time in a long while. She overheard Erica explaining that everything was a misunderstanding and that they were truly negligent. Erica calls out to her father, taking full responsibility for the situation. Her father advises her to remain calm and not say anything further. Ro was born in one of the impoverished neighborhoods, and when the Duke and Duchess found him, it must have been the first time he experienced warmth. So when he was sent to the magical tower, it must have felt like an expulsion, and he may not have been able to feel that warmth again immediately. It happened because she wasn't good enough and wonders if he would like to go back home if he's okay with it. She acknowledges that the enchanted tower is the destination she had desired to reach from the very beginning. The boy still thanked his parents for inviting him home and apologized. His mother, upon hearing those words, felt quite relieved. The protagonist remembered all of this was really true, and it turns out that her older brother had always dreamed of a magic tower. The girl wondered if her brother wanted to become an archmage. Boris said that if he mastered magic at the highest level, he could pass the exam for the title of archmage. The girl continued eating and thought all of this was true, as she remembered that in the novel, Roel would indeed become a great magician in the future. This was a great opportunity for him to become an archmage, but he had to go through a lot to get there. He had studied the most complex magic for several years and had also researched new magic. At the end of the day, his goal was to pass the archmage exam. In fact, his story begins a little later than the original plot. It took him a long time to reach archmage status, even after traveling the thorny royal road. He wanted to become a great magician, and even after achieving his goal, he still wanted to raise the reputation of his family. All this was because he felt he owed a lot to them. The Duke told the boy that everything was fine and that if he wanted to become an archmage, they would support him. The parents didn't know if this was good or bad but reassured him that they would always be on his side. The Duke also asked if the boy would like to see his family more often. The heroine thought that Roel is definitely part of the Dryad family and was glad he himself knew it. The boy, upon hearing his father's words, declared that of course, he would do it. He looked away, appearing a little embarrassed. The protagonist looked at him and thought he seemed better. The Duke asked the boy if his magical training was going well. The boy told him he was working hard but it was still quite insufficient. The girl wondered how it could not be enough, remembering from the novel's plot that not even the Crown Prince, who took the place of the Swordmaster, could defeat Roel. Erica smiled and declared that her brother was very smart. At the same time, she realized her mother and father were very proud of him. She also noted that her brother was young but could already use very strong magic. The older brother heard her words and was absolutely stupefied, and at the same time, the parents themselves were shocked. Upon hearing their daughter's words, the mother immediately asked if what the girl was saying was true. The father pointed out that when it came to the strongest magic, not even all experienced magicians could do that, and he asked if he was right in saying that. The man commented that it was amazing at such a young age, but the boy noticed his magic was not yet stable and still needed correction. However, his father wondered if it wasn't already an achievement. Nonetheless, everything was as expected of his son. The protagonist happily observed their conversation while looking at the boy. The older brother, still a child, suddenly looked at her with a cold gaze, and their gazes met for a moment. The parents were happy and smiled continuously. The girl turned away before the boy's cold gaze and thought she shouldn't be too happy. After all, her older brother almost burned her with a single look. In any case, she managed to melt Roel's cold heart and was sure they would get along well in the future. Shortly after, the older brother was leaving for the magic tower. Mom told him to be careful and visit home more often as she was very worried because the road was not safe at the moment. Father added that when the boy visited, he should make sure to write a letter because the number of demons had increased a lot lately. The protagonist wondered if the number of demons had really increased. The Duke put his hand on her head to calm her down. He laughed and said that the number of demons was indeed rising, which is why Mom and Dad were at the Imperial Palace. The Duchess declared the problem was in the mountains and His Majesty was very concerned about the sudden increase in demonic attacks. The man commented that during these times, the sword of the Empire must always be on guard. The father also told his son, as he had said before, to be careful. The boy responded that he understood, and that is how the protagonist would handle it. She thought it was not dangerous to send him alone, as she knew in this world, so-called demonic beasts often exist. They are a strange race that is extremely strong and agile, but the biggest problem is with the people themselves. They are often attacked by demonic beasts, which is why the imperial family hired the Dryad family to protect the citizens and sent them to protect the borders. The family was also ordered to protect the capital from attacks by demonic beasts. Although the demons were problematic, there were times when they were useful. The girl knew the empire where she lived was close to Mount Gaji, where the beast demons lived, and for this reason, the brave Koopman Empire had not yet conquered the Reed Empire. This was all due to the demons that were on Mount Gaji. Remembering all this, the girl realized that the number of demons on the mountain had increased a lot. The father continued, saying the demon called a dragon living on Mount Gaji is the most dangerous. It is unusual because it is said to take grain, which is an endangered crop. The girl heard this and happily realized the demon called the dragon knows the secret of rice. At that time, her older brother said goodbye to his parents and declared what was going to happen. Before entering the carriage, he cast a cold look toward the protagonist, but the girl was distracted and thought it was time for her to get down to work and learn more about that demon. She jumped down, but the landing was bad for her, and she hit the ground. She got up and found a large abrasion on her head. She thought to herself that she was still not used to her current body, so she decided to climb Mount Gaji. To reach the top, she trained well by practicing lifting stones, jumping high, and maintaining her balance. The girl felt that the blood of the Dryad family was flowing in her veins. Most people in this family had incredible strength. After her failed jump, the girl was heading to the side, feeling pain all over her body. She thought her ankle hurt, but she wouldn't give up growing rice so easily. She ran toward the forest, thinking that since she had the holy sword, she would be safe. After a short time, the girl stopped in the middle of the forest. She looked around and realized that the path was wider than she thought. The girl remembered that behind the Duchy of Dread was Mount Gaji, and she had learned the way thanks to the butler. The protagonist crouched among nearby bushes and wondered if she could lay an ambush there. She also thought about how easily she had climbed the mountain. She remembered that in her past life, her body was perfectly prepared for physical activities. There was no sport she hadn't practiced. She had also learned all the cultivation methods for different crops. But even with all this experience, she struggled because of the small body she suddenly inhabited. The girl looked up and saw something in front of her on the grass. There was a small animal with big ears. She scrutinized it and thought it might be the dragon. A few moments later, the animal ran away from her. The girl followed its route and realized its lair was there. She headed toward a hole in the wall. There, she saw countless supplies of different seeds and vegetables, but she never saw the cherished rice she dreamed of finding. Despite this, she wondered where they all came from. When the girl emerged from the hole, the rabbit followed her. Suddenly, she saw him and greeted him, thinking he was angry with her. Suddenly, he let out a terrible howl and transformed into a huge ferocious animal. The protagonist thought, why had it suddenly become so big? She closely observed it and noticed a pendant with grains around its neck. She thought it might be a dragon rabbit. Then the heroine realized she had been caught red-handed. The huge animal attacked her, trying to end her, but she didn't give it a second thought. She took out her weapon to defend herself. At one point, they both launched furious attacks against each other, and neither seemed willing to give up. After a while, the heroine stopped and thought it wasn't as simple as she thought. This animal was definitely not going to lose. At the same time, her previously injured ankle hurt a lot. She realized she couldn't move because of her ankle. She believed she couldn't dodge any more attacks. Resigned to her fate, she closed her eyes in anticipation of the attack. Suddenly, she heard someone shouting behind her. Startled, she saw her older brother, Roel, had used his magic to protect her with a shield. After protecting his little sister, he used his attack, causing an explosion that scared the huge animal away. The girl seemed very surprised by all this and wondered what her brother was doing there. The boy turned toward her with a cold look and asked what she was doing alone there. He also asked what she was thinking, coming there alone. At that moment, a huge beast behind her attacked again. The boy managed to see the attack at the last moment but couldn't do anything. The attack reached its target, and both the brother and sister were knocked to the side. Moments later, the protagonist came to her senses and saw her brother lying down. She immediately turned toward him, but he remained lying down and did not respond. The girl examined him carefully and realized he was breathing very weakly. She wondered if he had fainted. While sitting there, taking care of him, she heard a huge beast approaching. She turned around and saw it was close, preparing for a new attack. The heroine looked at the monster and realized she had been too arrogant. She took her sword in her hands and placed it in front of her. As she did, she prayed for the strength to protect her older brother, Roel, for just a moment. Then the sky lit up with a brilliant beam of light that came from the sword. The beam was so bright that it even mowed down the animal that wanted to attack the girl. The protagonist realized she had finally achieved her goal. Suddenly, someone turned to her and told her she was being reckless. The girl wondered what he was carrying. Suddenly, she looked at the sword in her hands. He wondered how the hell it could turn into some kind of roast. The spirit of the sword kept insisting it was a holy sword. But the girl continued to be amazed and declared, "It is really a roast." The spirit was scandalized and declared she should not ignore it. The girl thought with a smile on her face that no matter how you looked at it, it resembled an ordinary roast, and to make matters worse, it was just the right size for her hand. The girl patiently asked if Sita was holding a first-class asada. She added that it also spoke, which was interesting, but the spirit of the sword reiterated that it was a sacred sword. The heroine commented again that she couldn't believe she was holding the asada in her hands. The sword wondered if she thought that sounded like a compliment. The huge rabbit looked on in amazement at what was happening in front of him. The sword continued to express displeasure, wondering if the girl realized how badly she had hurt its pride as a sacred weapon. The heroine did not respond and immediately caught the rabbit's gaze. She then realized she had to take care of the animal first, and the rest would come later. At that precise moment, the protagonist remembered the words of her real mother, who told her to listen to her own instincts. She didn't need to see or feel, she could visualize everything just by closing her eyes. The girl visualized the weeds in front of her and how to uproot them. She decided to focus on the roots and how to destroy them. She opened her eyes and was filled with fury as she remembered the farmer's rights law. Chapter 1 of the law established that it was necessary to strike the weeds directly. The girl, with all her strength and using her weapon in the shape of a roast, struck the huge animal. This ferocious attack succeeded in twisting the animal. She turned to see what had happened to the particular dragon. She seemed a little scared, unsure if she had succeeded, but the girl saw the huge monster lying unconscious near her. At the same time, she felt very happy and thought she had finally defeated him. Then, the heroine saw blood on herself and thought about it. She looked at her roast and examined it carefully, thinking that it seemed the holy sword had shared its immense power with her. After recovering a bit, she thought about what had happened to the monster and needed to check it urgently. She slowly crawled toward the unconscious body of the animal. As she got closer, she saw the pendant hanging from the monster's neck. She was happy and took it immediately. When she examined it more closely, she realized it contained rice seeds. With tears of joy in her eyes, she knew she had been right. At the same time, the girl realized she was under a strange spell. She lifted the pendant and wondered how she could extract the grains. She also wondered why the demon wanted to seal the rice seeds. She looked up, then crouched down and shook her head sharply. This made her dizzy, and she even felt like she was about to faint. At that moment, her older brother ran over to her. The heroine saw him and she was relieved her brother was okay. Despite his condition not being the best, she ran to her brother's arms. He didn't expect such a turn of events and was shocked. The girl immediately declared that she was happy her brother was all right. Therefore, the heroine continued hugging him and thought she was grateful she could protect Roel. While hugging him, she thought about what could have happened if both of them had been injured, but she decided not to dwell on it. Soon, the protagonist found herself in her bed. She was still asleep when she heard someone calling her name. It wasn't just one person, it was enough to make her think the room was very noisy. She immediately opened her eyes and stood up, then shouted at all the people in the room to stop making noise because she was not dying. The room was very noisy and bothering her as she woke up. She saw countless people in front of her in her room. There were her parents, the gardener, the chef, the maid, and the butler. All of them were very excited when the girl woke up. Looking at them, the girl wondered what was going on. Suddenly, her father turned to her and put his hand on her head. He asked how Erica was feeling. The heroine said she was fine but also wondered why everyone was in her room. They commented that they were very worried about her. The gardener, through tears, said he thought the lady was dying. The girl remembered that Erica Dryad was the only daughter of the Dryad family, which is why all the people around her overprotected her. She was the most beloved by them, and this was enough to turn Erica into a villain. But even so, she realized she was growing tired of all the commotion around her. Someone present said they would immediately descend into the depths of the ocean, 100 meters down, to retrieve the elixir of immortality. Another person declared they would go and obtain and cure a centaur horn. The girl became very tired of all the shouting and declared that she had had enough. At the same time, she added that she was fine after everything. Everyone immediately quieted down and turned their attention to her. At that moment, the Duchess began to ask everyone to leave the room. She told them she needed to speak privately with her daughter. The Duke, surprised, asked if he should also leave. The woman told him he should and asked him to leave the room. After that, the two were left alone in the room. The mother sat next to her daughter and declared with a smile that there was finally silence. She then added that she wanted Erica to explain herself. The protagonist thought these words had already scared her, but she understood her mother's reaction was natural. The mother asked her how and why she had been there alone and without company. What was she doing there? The heroine smiled and affirmed she understood what her mother was talking about. She explained that she had heard about the demon appearing and couldn't sit still. Her mother asked why she couldn't sit still and the girl immediately declared it was because she was a member of the Dryad family. She also wanted to fight monsters like her mother and father. The woman was stunned by her daughter's words. She exhaled sadly and declared she understood how her daughter felt. She added that Erica should not do it again and said she understood what her mother was saying. The heroine smiled and affirmed she understood everything. Luckily for her, she was now exhausted. Her mother saw her smile and immediately approached her, patting her on the head and asking what else. Her mother's heart almost stopped with emotion for her own daughter. She added that she and Roel had also suffered for their recklessness. The girl immediately remembered her older brother and asked her mother where he was. Her mother said he was sitting in the magic tower reflecting on the situation that had happened to him and his little sister. Upon returning home, her mother stated he had saved his little sister from a demon. Her father praised Roel for saving his precious sister. He even stroked his son's head, which made him a little embarrassed. The Duke remembered and smiled at his eldest son, telling him he had done a great job. Roel, however, commented that everything had gone wrong because he was too weak. Suddenly, his mother approached him and said he should raise his head. She added he was very good and should not blame himself for anything. They were a part of the D family, and these types of things often happened to them. The Duke said that was true, adding that Roel was a member of the D family. Roel was sitting in the magic tower, contemplating everything that had happened. He felt embarrassed when he remembered all the nice words his parents had said to him. The woman told her daughter that Roel had returned to the magic tower and received some minor abrasions. The girl immediately jumped out of bed and declared she urgently needed to go to the magic tower. When she was about to leave, her mother stopped her and pointed out that although the members of the Drite family had more physical strength than the average person, there were other dangers for their family. She wondered if the girl understood all this. The heroine paid attention and asked for clarification. Her mother explained it was related to her high status and how, when danger came, they attacked instead of running away. This had been rooted in their regions for a long time. She added that she did not want the girl to grow up like the real members of the Drite family. Despite everything, her mother wanted the girl to learn how to survive, not fight like others.